August 1st, 2020. You are listening to the Inquisitive Bro podcast. Today, the NBA bubble is in full swing. What's going to happen? Is it even going to work? Are there lingering questions that need answered? We'll try to figure it out. I'm Chris. He's Andrew. Let's go. Okay, Andrew, so the NBA quarantine bubble at Disney World is in full swing. And as an exercise, I've asked you, and I've done the same thing for myself, is to write down 5 things that we're most interested in with the NBA as the season's about to restart. So this can be players, this can be teams, this can be just random topics, anything. I let our imaginations take over. So, Andrew, you're the guest, and let's go first with you. What is the number one thing that you are most interested in for this NBA restart?
I will stick with a Raptors-focused discussion to lead us off here. And my point is that this year's Raptors remind me a lot of the 2004 Pistons, in that the talent is scattered throughout the roster, good depth, but no one main superstar that stands out above the rest. Obviously, last year that was Kawhi. This year, Kawhi is no longer a Raptor, and yet we continue to win games as I expected us to do because of our depth and because we do have some prominent players, including a couple of All-Stars. I mean, Lowry and Siakam are All-Stars, and even Fred VanVleet can play like an All-Star.
Well, luckily,
at times.
Just to jump over, luckily, we had the infrastructure in place that Kawhi's contributions, and also Danny Green's, for that matter, were able to be replaced because we had guys who are ready to take next steps. And also, I mean, guys like Kyle Lowry, for example, who took a step back in scoring last year, and now he's just scoring a little bit more because we need that. But totally, we've been able to, for the regular season at least, replace the value that Kawhi was able to bring.
So I think my question going into the bubble is, can we be the 2004 Pistons and win a chip without that bona fide superstar? Or are we going to need somebody to step up? Are we going to say at the end of the season, man, good thing, Lowry stood above the rest, or good thing Pascal really stood out as our go-to guy? Or can we continue to just have a balanced offense, balanced attack, and just kill him with our depth?
I like how your question, both answers lead to us still winning the championship.
Yeah.
Are we going to
continue with the optimism this year?
Are we going to win it by a community effort, or are we going to win it because someone takes over?
Right.
Those are the only two options.
Yeah.
No,
my question was, what led to the Raptors repeating championship this year?
Right. Nostradamus over here.
Good vibes, good energy.
Right. Look, I think we saw this with the Raptors before Kawhi, right? We had a lot of good regular season teams. What we don't know is how this particular team, is going to perform in the playoffs. Although I do believe that we will do better, or this team is better suited than the DeMar and Kyle led Raptors of previous years.
Yeah, the main difference is championship pedigree now. Number
one, yeah, for sure, we believe it. Number two, when we had DeMar was a poor defender. He's like pigeon-toed. He himself was kind of a turnstile defensively, and you had to hide him. We don't have that on our team. Our top 7-8 players, all really good defensive players. And we got a healthy Marc Gasol coming back in. And I was reading a report on... Actually, no, I was listening to the Zach Lowe post, not reading a report. I was listening to the Lowe post. He was talking with Kevin Arnovitz, and they mentioned how, talking to all the NBA scouts, talking about NBA defensive teams, they believe that the best defensive player on the Raptors was actually Marc Gasol. It's a subjective thing, despite all the other good defenders we have. But that's a good thing, because we have a lot of good defenders. OG Anunoby has taken a step up. He's done a really good job in Kawhi's absence on the defensive end. He's built like a brick shithouse. You're not moving that guy. Pascal, a lot of people have seen his defense kind of take a little step back, mostly because he's putting a lot more effort on the offensive end, which is understandable, but he's still a really good defender in his own right, and when he wants to dial it up, he's a hard guy to get around.
Marc Gasol looking lean and mean coming into the
really
quarantine
good.
bubble.
We'll see. A lot of guys have looked. I mean, it's kind of like a preseason right now. How many guys come in and is like, I'm in the best shape of my life? At least with Mark, he has the pedigree. I like to think he can back it up, but we'll see. But I believe that eventually, just to get to the question that you were actually asking, I believe eventually we're going to need a guy to step up. We've seen that in the past. We're going to need a guy who's in crunch time when things are tight and our half court offense isn't working because we're not the best half court offense team. We're very good in transition, but sometimes we get a little bogged down because we don't have a go-to scorer. We're going to need someone who has the hot hand. I don't know if it's going to be one guy though. That's the thing. We're not going to have. We don't have a Kawhi.
I mean, that is the question, so we'll have to wait and see. Good defense leads to transition buckets, so if we can stop one on one end.
If we win, I'm going to put the caveat if, because I'm not as confident about you. I think...
I don't like your attitude.
I think, like, just because the way our team is, if we win, it's going to be because of a team effort where one game it might be Pascal who's got the hot hand and down crunch time you give him the ball. One game might be Norman Powell. Another game might be Van Vliet or Lowry.
I don't want to belabor this point, and we'll get to the next point soon. But something that has plagued the Raptors for many years, almost from infancy, is the problem that when crunch time comes in, rather than just running offense, we fall into this let's just give it to the hot hand. That's great when your guy's rolling throughout the game, but things are different out of a timeout in a half-court set when you're expecting somebody to go one-on-one and generate a bucket versus just playing over the course of a game. I don't like it unless you got Kobe or Jordan or James Harden, which most franchises don't. I think you got to run some offense, and if the offense falls apart or breaks down, then you got to give it to a guy like Siakam and see if he can do something with it. But to just start by dribble, giving it to Pascal top of the paint, and letting the clock run down, hoping he does something, not a good tactic.
Well, I'm pretty sure that the only end of clock situation we'll do is the exact Kawhi play where he runs around the entire arc and does a fading shot from the right baseline. That's the only play that works.
Nobody's gonna see that coming.
No. To actually answer your question seriously, if you're talking about the history of the Raptors franchise, I mean, for many, many years, just general NBA thinking was you give it to the best player down the end of the clock. That was just how it was done, right?
Yeah. Just terrible results.
And then
even the best clutch guys have horrible end of the game percentages.
Yeah, but you don't remember the ones that they miss. You remember the ones they make.
Unless you're me and you're salty.
Yes, you are salty. But. And the other one is the other answer is poor coaching, unimaginative coaching, which I don't think we have to worry about with Nick Nurse.
Right.
I do believe that coming down the stretch, we'll be running weird plays. Nick Nurse he's a little mastermind, right? He likes to come up with random shit, but they also don't call as many fouls late, right? So things can get bogged up where they just blatant fouls, little holds here and there that just don't get called because refs won't want to call it. And a lot of times it just comes down to, well, shit, you need a guy who's just going to go make a bucket, right?
I like it.
Yeah.
Point number 2, this is you.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go out west. I'm going to look at the Lakers because obviously LeBron and AD's Lakers number 1 in the West, and they're a really good team. My question, Andrew, is, does LeBron have a good enough supporting cast around him to win the championship? And if not, does that even matter? Can he still win it without one?
For a long time, I've said never doubt the king. So regardless of who's around him, I always like his odds. But yeah, valid question.
Is that all you have to say about that?
I thought you have the plan. You want me to answer your questions?
Well,
sure. I have an idea. I'll give you my take on it. So where we stand today, Rajon Rondo just broke his hand.
Right.
So he's out 6 to 8 weeks. Given the new season, I'm not exactly sure where 6 to 8 weeks puts us. I'm guessing it'll be somewhere in the second round. Maybe the third, but we'll be mid-playoffs for sure.
I don't even know.
It's going to be tough. Nobody really knows at this point. I don't even think the NBA knows exactly how the timeline's going to go.
I'm fairly certain that with the schedule currently in place, that the finals are scheduled to take place early October.
Early October, so 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, Rondo is a notoriously quick healer
Well,
from past injuries.
That's true. I mean, we'll toss this one on the notes, but the injury I remember most is when Dwayne Wade in the I think it was 2011, 2012, blatantly threw Rajon Rondo to the side to get a loose ball, and Rajon dislocated his elbow. And It was pretty gruesome, quite noticeable. Came back the next day, I think. Did he play the rest of that game? I think he played the rest of that game. I'd have
He
to
might
check
have.
that.
I mean, tough little guy, but unfortunately he's out. So,
But he's not even that good. I mean, like,
I don't know, man. I mean, Lakers. To your question, Lakers lack depth, and we already
Yeah.
know Avery Bradley has decided not to join his teammates in the bubble. I don't think.
replace him with J.R. Smith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, that could turn out to be good, or that could turn out to be a
I
complete
think
non-factor.
frankly, I think it's a wash. I think it's kind of a wash.
You never know. I mean, you only need one J.R. Smith game where he goes 7 of 8 from 3 to make the signing worthwhile.
Oh
So
yeah,
we'll
no,
see.
exactly. I mean, it could be. J.R. has always been and always will be a boom and bust guy.
The Lakers are LeBron and Anthony Davis. I'm not
That's-
high on Kyle Kuzma. I'm not high on the coaching staff. I'm not high on the depth.
Great. On Kyle Kuzma, I'm not high on him in the sense that he doesn't work with LeBron and AD because they're both basically LeBron and AD are both power forwards. Although AD in good lineups can play center, but where does Kuz play? Because he's not really a small forward. He's not a very good defensive small forward. He's better at the power forward spot, but then he's kind of light there. He's kind of a tweener, to be honest.
Isn't it crazy to think that we're talking about Kyle Kuzma as a power forward when power forwards back in the day were David Robinson and Charles Barkley?
Oh yeah, but this has been happening for a while. This is not the first time that.
I think the year 2020 we can officially say, and I know it's been thrown around for the past few years, but the NBA has officially become positionless.
There's centers.
There's centers, but you look at it like a team could run LeBron at the 5, no problem.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty positionless. I mean, it's just put
pretty
your best
close.
guys out there.
Yeah.
You still need some sort of traditional positional awareness because you still need tall guys to get rebounds, you know? You look at the Rockets, though. They've shown pretty effectively that you may not need a center. But yeah, look, the big question, basically the heart of this question is LeBron and Anthony Davis plus random players good enough? It might be. I'm not sure.
I mean, who are the main challengers? I really think it's
Clippers.
Houston. Oh, you think Clippers more than Houston?
100%. Clippers are the second best team in the West. They were better than Houston to begin with, and they barely had Paul George and Kawhi play together.
But I don't know if you remember, but when the NBA season finally called it quits this year, Russell Westbrook was playing MVP caliber basketball.
They started off the Rockets. The Rockets micro ball experiment started off really hot, but if you look at their last few games before they stopped, they started losing. But I mean, small sample sizes, right? The thing about the Rockets that's interesting is that we don't know what that experiment, like what the fruits will hold, right? Like they didn't have enough time to really put it together for people to make a pure a final determination on it, right? So this is like going into the playoffs will be a really interesting litmus test for the Rockets and what they're trying to do. It's gimmicky, right? Like I think teams got thrown off by it, but I think you can also figure it out pretty quickly. It's just a bunch of small, like they started defending Russ with centers, just
Right.
way back, and Russ could still get a bunch of speed and finish over centers, but I'd take my chances with that. I'm not concerned about the Rockets. I wouldn't be that concerned. I think
Who's your pick to come out of the West?
if I had to choose, I'd probably choose the Clippers. I think I don't like to answer my own question. I suppose I actually don't think that the Lakers have enough depth. I don't think they're every single playoff run that you see championship teams do, and LeBron championship teams do. There's role players who make huge impacts in meaningful games, and they have like role players are super important for those moments, like when you really need them. And I don't think they got the guys. I think they're really 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 good, but I don't think they're championship level yet. I think they need to tinker a little bit, and I think the Clippers match up really well against them, and I think they have better depth.
Yeah, I
So
think so too. I would pick the Clippers coming out of the West too.
yeah. So I guess
But
Andrew,
as always, never doubt the king.
that is true. Never doubt the king. So I guess the answer is who's to know?
Ask me again in 6 months. I'll know for sure.
Well, it doesn't matter because we know the Raptors are winning the title apparently, right?
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, Andrew, number 2 on your list.
So yeah, I mean my intriguing point going into the new season here is really bubble centric, and how it's going to work, and is it going to work? I'm hearing many people affiliated with the NBA and the bubble who are giving it a 50-50 chance that the season even finishes.
Are these your inside sources? This is what you're hearing?
These are my inside sources. Yeah,
Okay.
they have to remain unnamed because they don't exist. But from what I've heard, they are very concerned. And I mean, you got to think about it. Like, there's a lot of people going in and out of the bubble who don't work for the NBA, who are just support staff to kind of make all this come together, whether they're providing cleaning services or food or stadium services. And they're not getting tested as rigorously as the NBA players are. And I mean, already you got the Kings, Rashawn Holmes, who broke the quarantine. He went across the border to like grab a chalupa or something and came back and they busted him. So he's out quarantining for how many days now? I think it's eight days. Yeah.
They have to stay 8 days in their room. Bruno Caboclo also, shout out to Bruno, former Raptor.
Former Raptor. What a shame Bruno's got a quarantine. I don't know how Houston's going to recover from him being out for 8 days.
Well, if he was 2 years away from being 2 years away,
That's
means...
this season.
No, I think he's now 1 year into having arrived. Isn't this his 5th year?
Yeah, I guess it has to be.
So he has arrived. He is now the Brazilian Kevin Durant, clearly.
If he sees any floor time throughout the Houston playoff run, I will buy you a chalupa.
You're really into chalupas today, eh?
I'm pretty sure that's what this Kings guy went out to grab from his Uber Eats delivery, so I don't know if I've ever had a chalupa.
How do you know that's what he got? Is that your inside sources, or is that part of the ESPN? Like,
I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere, but it may or may not be true. If you guys know exactly
what was in this chalupa, do you
well,
know?
hold on. If anyone listening knows exactly what was in the Uber Eats bag that he picked up that was so delicious it was worth breaking quarantine for, please let me know because we may need to order some for the house.
But yeah, Bruno Caboclo broke quarantine too, which kind of brings one concern I have. Are NBA players even capable of doing this properly? They're kind of used to... I don't think it would be a stretch to say that they're kind of used to a certain lifestyle. Yeah. And especially guys who have been in the league for quite a while. You know that there are some prima donnas out there. I just wonder how much this grates on them, and they realize, damn, this sucks. And I just don't know if they'll be able to do it.
From some of the footage coming from inside the bubble, from some of these NBA guys, I think it has hit them fast and furious that this is not as fun as they initially thought it would be.
Oh, 100%. I mean... Getting Mickey pancakes for my breakfast.
That's pretty cute for day 1, 2, and 3. But by day 4, I think I'm over it.
What about day 45, day 60? They're going to be there for so long.
I don't think people realize this is a literal quarantine. Like, they're going to be stuck with the same people till end of October. I mean, I guess if you get eliminated, you can go home.
Yeah. It's going to be like in that South Park episode where they're playing baseball and they all just want to lose so they can enjoy the rest of their summer.
Yeah.
This can be this. All the players just trying to tank.
Yeah, yeah.
Whichever team sucks at tanking the most.
I mean, like, some of these guys aren't even making the playoffs. So, I mean, they could be in the bubble for like 3 weeks and then out of there.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm on the Phoenix Suns or the Washington Wizards, unless I really
Wait, did Phoenix get invited to the bubble?
Yes, they did. They were the 22nd team.
Oh, my goodness. What a shame.
They, because they needed a reason. Basically, the reason was they wanted Zion in that bubble.
Right.
And they didn't want to just limit it to the playoff teams. They wanted teams that were outside of the playoffs to get a chance. And they were also trying to maximize the amount of revenue that they can get for the NBA season. More teams equals more revenue, but you don't want to do all 30. So they just landed on a semi-arbitrary, like from what I understand, kind of like a semi-arbitrary number based upon just lobbying by the owners. Like the owners of the teams wanted their players in there because they get money from this.
Right.
So they wanted that. But if I was a player myself, which sadly I am not, if I didn't need that prorated amount of money that they're getting from playing those games, like a Bradley Beal, for example,
Right.
then I'd probably say fuck it and just
Yeah, I mean, when this was announced,
opt
I was
out.
not that excited about it.
Yeah,
Like putting myself in their shoes.
right. Like as a fan, I'm excited about it. I want to see basketball.
Absolutely want the content, and I'm glad they're going. I'm glad they're doing this. But if I was them, this is not the way I want to spend the next 6 months.
No, I mean, think about what your normal lifestyle is as a multi-millionaire for many of these people.
Yeah. Yeah. This is going to be restrictive, to say the least.
I think there's a big question then is not just can they quarantine, there will likely be positive tests, and then that'll cause that individual to have to go into quarantine for, I guess, 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Right.
What happens if a big name, and let's just skip to the big name, or the two big names, Giannis, LeBron, a Kawhi. What happens if they get it?
But here's my question. Okay, so say LeBron gets it and he's got to quarantine for 8 days. But if you're on LeBron's
I think if you
team-
test positive, I think it'd be the 14 days that you normally see.
Right. But regardless, like if you're on the same team or you just played against LeBron the night before, are you not also subject to the same quarantine rules?
No, because they're testing them every day.
Right.
So you're getting tested all the time. So, I mean, if you test negative, you're negative, right? The Raptors, for example, the day before Rudy Gobert tested positive, the Raptors played against Utah, and all our players tested negative.
Right. Going to be interesting.
But it does. This playoffs has the biggest boom or bust potential, I think, of like any playoffs in history because of the unique aspect of it.
Boom or bust as far as what, ratings?
As far as the quality of play and how legitimate the championship is seen, if no one, say there are minimal COVID positive tests, and specifically no one important, not to hate on the scrubs out there, but you're scrubs.
Yeah.
No one important gets tests positive, and the playoffs go without a relative hitch, then I would say that this is one of the more legitimate championships you can win because there's no home court advantage. It's just pure basketball. It's like you're playing just 5-on-5 pickup, but with the best players in the world, right?
Right. I am excited though for the NBA restart that Nets signed Jamal Crawford. I'm a big fan. I cannot believe he spent the entire season as an unrestricted free agent. That is ludicrous.
Keep getting them checks, Jamal.
Keep getting them checks. Do you know how many points Jamal Crawford scored in his final NBA game?
No.
It was...
How do you know this?
Because I remember it because it was a big deal. It was Dirk Nowitzki's final game.
And you remember it as Jamal Crawford's final.
Well, he went 18 of 30 from the field, dropped 51 points.
Yeah.
That was the last game he played and then went unsigned the next season.
He can always score. I mean, if once the NBA is done with him, I'm sure he can follow the Joe Johnson route and be a big star in the big three.
Yeah, if he goes that route.
Probably could. I mean, he can still play.
Obviously, he can still play. I mean, we'll see it in 8 games.
I'm pretty sure he's the only 2000 draft class guy still in the NBA.
Ooh, that is
a legigendarily
very
bad
possible.
draft class.
I think it's by a lot of circles known as the worst.
Yeah, arguably the worst, for sure.
But nothing on Jamal Crawford. Great player, long career.
Yeah,
really liked him.
But
okay, you want to jump to your next point?
I guess I just want to finish off. I just want to finish off on what I said earlier about. I mean, it could the boom or bust thing, right? Like boom, if no one, it's a boom if no one important gets the virus, and the playoffs can play out as you'd like to hope. But I mean, if a LeBron or Giannis get the virus and then their teams lose a playoff series, then there's going to be a huge asterisk. There just
absolutely.
Is. Most championships have asterisks from certain fan bases. Like basically at the end of any season, there's 29 fan bases that are pissed off and one that's happy. And so you'll always find a lot of reasons to be like, it's not legitimate for this or that.
Absolutely,
some years more than others.
The difference is this year's asterisk could be a consensus pick.
For sure.
Yeah.
You still get the chip. Could you imagine, first of all, not to belabor the Raptors' inevitable repeat, but if the Raptors, for example, won this championship with they beat the Bucks and like Giannis had COVID or something. They beat them in the conference finals. They go in the finals, like, and they beat the Lakers, the Clippers. One of them have COVID, or even without COVID. But talk about one of the most random repeats ever. Go from beating the Warriors, where two of their best players by the end of it were down. Right. So you didn't really beat them at full strength, but still, I'll take it.
Right.
And then you go into the quarantine playoffs, and you just win that one.
I mean,
Strange
I guess
times.
Kudos to the Raptors for having great immune systems.
Yes. Masai, that's one of the things that Masai scouts for, immune systems. We've been ahead of the curve on that one. No, but we'll see. It's an interesting. It's interesting because if LeBron or like Giannis get it, they're not stopping. It's just gonna.
Season keeps ticking.
It's just gonna happen. But I mean, just like guys can get injuries, twisted ankles can happen.
Well, let me ask you this:
Positive tests
if LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis all kind of get it around the same time, does the NBA not just pull the plug on the season?
No, I think they're too. I don't. That would be ridiculous. That's like an Armageddon. Like,
I've heard Adam Silver say that it is not 100% certainty that they will finish the season because an outbreak could happen, and an outbreak might only to you and me it might mean a dozen guys, but to Adam Silver it might mean 2, 3, 4 guys within a tight span.
Arguably, if they don't even complete it, that would be the worst case scenario.
Yeah,
because then they did this all for nothing.
Correct.
Because all they wanted to do was get that champion named, regardless of the potential carnage or.
But I think every professional sports league going into a season now knows that there's a chance it may not finish.
Right now, yes, for sure.
Yeah. So much uncertainty in the world today, especially in sports.
Okay.
Tough to predict.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to go with my second one. And this is another team-based one. And it's just, Andrew, in this bubble, what is the team that is most likely to disappoint?
Interesting. Most likely to disappoint.
There's a couple ways you can go with this.
Okay.
You can go the route of like a Houston Rockets, for example, or Denver Nuggets, where they lose in the first round. Side note, I actually think like Houston, to me, just like they're a 3-point shooting team, and within games, high variance. They could brick a bunch and they'll lose, or they just start making them and they're going to win by a lot. They are also high variance. I see within kind of like the ranges which they could go in the playoffs. I could see them losing in the first round very easily. I could also see them making it to the conference finals, maybe even further, frankly. They have that type of team. You're not sure.
Right.
And it's exacerbated by the fact that they have this experiment without a true center, right? But I think, to answer my own question then, I'll jump the lead. I think the team most likely to disappoint is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Okay. You have a reasoning for that?
Yes. Because it's all or nothing for them. They were the best team by far throughout the year. All the stats, everything. They are number one, and by a large margin. They are very close in a lot of statistics to that 73-win Warriors team. They're a very, very, very good team, but people don't really... there's that shadow of doubt around them because of the way they lost the Raptors last year and because they haven't done it before and they still feel new with Giannis and Coach Bud and everything. People doubt them. Frank, that's the way it works in the NBA. You're doubted until you do it.
Right. Is there a chance because this restart is so different than what we're used to that people would give the Bucks a pass if this didn't end up being the season that it would have been if the NBA hadn't stopped?
Sure. Some fans will definitely give them a pass, but those true NBA fans, they hate deep to the core.
That's true.
And there are no passes.
Those
Even
are
if
people.
You succeed, you don't pass.
That's right.
You just get put an asterisk on.
Correct.
No one ever wins. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think
But I think an interesting point that we can jump on your question, who's most likely to disappoint? I'm going to spin this a little differently. I think the most disappointing finish would be if one of these lower seeds who normally might not have even been able to get into the playoffs because of the restart and everyone's kind of coming into this differently, if they get hot, sneak into the playoffs, roll through a couple high seeds early on and knock them out, and now you're looking at a totally different conference final because of the restart and because of the abbreviated training time and how we kind of just jumped into it. Is it totally out of the question that, a Pelicans or a Blazers with the talent that they have and the youth that they have kind of get hot and maybe knock off a 1-2 seed early on, and now we're looking at a totally different picture?
Well, first of all, the Pelicans have to make the playoffs first.
But 8 games to do so, they could win 6 out of 8.
Plus the play-in rounds. Remember the play-in games?
Yeah, I'm just saying you get hot for a 3-week span. There's going to be a lot of games in those 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of an amazing story, though. I don't think that's disappointing.
Well, it's amazing if you're a Pelicans fan. Not so amazing if you're a
like,
Clippers team that kind of needed more time to get warmed up.
Yeah, well, whatever. You should have gone. You have great players. You should have been able to be good quick enough, right? I mean, everyone had the same. Everyone's under the same. What's the parameters? Everyone's under the same conditions. If Zion Williamson, number 1 overall pick, fulfills suddenly his destiny right away and just kills it and makes it to the finals and somehow wins the championship in his rookie year, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, but I mean we know
it's
smaller sample size, more variability in the outcome.
But it's not going to be a smaller sample size because you're still playing the same amount of playoff games.
But a lot has happened in between when we cut the season and when we're starting back up again.
Different factors, you're right. Different set of circumstances, but it's not a smaller sample size. It's the exact same sample size. Look, 7-game series are meant to be large enough that the best team should win. If you don't win...
Okay, maybe smaller sample size wasn't the right term, just different circumstances.
You're right.
Yeah, and some teams who normally would benefit from a normal season are at a disadvantage now because of the way things have played out.
You're right, but you know that...
I'm telling you, you're going to see it. This is going to be the year of the upset.
Sure. I'll embrace it, as long as the Raptors don't lose it. As long as the Raptors aren't upset.
I'm confident in the Raptors. They're going to be okay.
Look, upsets happen. The thing, I don't have sympathy for teams that are going to lose in the first round, for example, and they may whine because of the unique circumstances, but everyone's under the same circumstances. You could have either, like, that's kind of excuse making, right? Like, you could have either succeeded or not. And, you know, some teams will do better than others.
Lakers and Clippers, both old teams, if their bones are a little achy from this start and they get blown out in the first round,
that's what
you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, well,
you're going to be you, Adam Silver, the owners, and the TV stations are going to be very disappointed that those two teams.
Yeah, but that happens. That's sports. And like the Lakers front office organization, guess what? When you sign a 34-year-old LeBron, I think he's 35 now. That means you get a 35-year-old, right? If he takes a little longer, and frankly, I think he'll be fine. But if that person takes a little longer to get off the ground, guess what? That's what happens when you sign. That's the risk you take when you sign a 35-year-old. You know, I don't have sympathy for that. I don't care for that. I think it's totally fine.
That's cold. I'm supposed to be bad. You're usually good cop. I'm usually bad cop. And I'm giving a little bit more sympathy to these guys under these circumstances.
I don't know. I'm not. I don't have when it's just pure competition. I think you just let the chips lie where they may. And if you can't beat the Pelicans or the Blazers, for example, in a 7-game series, you didn't deserve to beat them.
Okay, I'm going to remind you about this pod when we're sitting at the end of October and NBC is airing the bubble NBA Finals with the Orlando Magic against the Sacramento Kings.
Well, first of all, Sacramento has like a pretty low chance.
I'm just saying any team in a small sample size is capable of winning a handful of games early.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, we already talked about it. This is not a small sample size. It's not. It's a normal sample size.
But it's a restart. So it is a small sample size because you're under new circumstances.
Fine. Like, look, if we're talking about can random teams succeed? Yeah. If any year, this would be the year where a random team succeeds.
There's no home court advantage. The higher seed does not have that.
But I can welcome that, you know? These teams, for example, Orlando Magic and Sacramento, so bereft of good times in their history for the most part. Maybe this would be nice, you know? Like a chance for random teams to win for once. Like,
yeah, I think it's a strong possibility. Yeah,
although those teams are really not that exciting. Those teams are bad. They're not going to win. But like just going back to the Bucks, like I still think I honestly do believe that they would be the most disappointing team because like if you think about it, I mean, it's so important for them. They got the Giannis Supermax looming. If they're the best team again by far and they don't win this year, and yes, you can put a lot of caveats upon it that they didn't win and run it back next year, and next year will be the year. But the point is that like they didn't win, and they got to show Giannis that they can win. And if Giannis is not convinced, like he may not sign the Supermax this summer. I wouldn't be surprised because Supermaxes are tied to the the salary cap, and we don't know where the salary cap's going to be. So if he doesn't sign the Supermax, he has one more year left, and then he can leave. So that means that in the 3-year stretch, or all the 2 years prior, with Mike Budenholzer, where they've been unquestionably the best team in the league, they have yet to do it. They have one more year. If they don't do it that year, then what is he going to do? He's probably going to leave. There's huge stakes at hand for the Bucks in this playoffs.
I mean, at the very least, if they blow this year, they got one more chance next year to win it with Giannis and convince him to stay.
Yes, but that's the thing. Then it's like a 1 year, fingers crossed.
That happens to a lot of guys in a contract year.
That's true. It happens, but
I think you're right, though. Big implications for the Bucks franchise.
I also believe in playoff demons. I believe a lot of it is confidence based. The more times you don't do it, I feel like it's less and less likely that you will, because you're going to start doubting yourself, right? With the current group that you have. That is.
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah, we'll see. Ultimately, I guess, just like any other year, there's going to be one team that's happy, and all the other teams are not. So, and that won't change. Actually, let's just try to wrap this up kind of quicker. Andrew, you got the next one. Go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
So I'm just curious to see, it's been 4.5 months exactly between when Adam Silver pulled the plug on the league and when the first game of the restart will happen. And honestly, I'm just curious as to what people have been doing during those 4.5 months. The season came together pretty quick. Up until July 1st, I don't think we really even knew if there was going to be a season. I can't believe how quick they actually managed to pull it together. Kudos to the NBA and everybody involved in doing that so quickly. But were guys sitting around? Were guys staying in shape? Are the older guys going to need more time to ramp up? Are the younger guys going to have an advantage? Are we going to start to see injuries pile up quickly because guys weren't working out, their bodies aren't used to it, and they're going to jump into meaningful regular season games?
Let me just jump in there. How dare you assume that these guys weren't working out meticulously during the quarantine?
I mean, based on how I've seen most players jump into training camp in a normal season, it doesn't look like there's much training going on in the summer.
I think most of them actually come in pretty good. They're running summer runs most summers.
Have you
some
seen
runs
those
in the Drew Leagues.
the Drew League games. Have you seen who plays in the Drew League games? It's the top 10% of the league gets invited to the Drew League games.
And then some LA-based rappers and
50 Cent, Chris Brown, and Chris Brown plays.
I think he did. Also, J. Cole plays a little bit, I think. But regardless of the rappers, even the guys, frankly, who don't play in the Drew League, because you're right, there's not that many NBA players who do. I think most regular seasons coming in, most of the guys are coming in pretty good shape, except for Jokic. So it's kind of funny that Jokic is now coming in better shape than most people, it looks like, whereas most season he comes in terrible shape. But I'll just expand on the part that's interesting, the thing you brought up about the injuries and stuff, because it could be an issue. I have no idea. What do you think?
I mean, I honestly do think that in a normal season with a normal schedule, a lot of guys do use the training camp to work into shape. I don't think they're coming in game ready or even close to it. They're probably coming in a little bit overweight. They're probably a little stiff and rusty.
What about the guys? You hear stories about this all the time. Every single year, every team has at least one guy who's he's in the best shape of his life.
Yeah, but
right?
It says who?
I don't know. Says team officials, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Remember Skinny Kyle and stuff? That was the thing, right? Over the summer, he got skinny. He got abs.
But listen to this. We talk about Skinny Kyle because it was an anomaly.
Yeah, he came in one season.
If everybody came in awesome Skinny Kyle shape, we wouldn't have made an issue about it. But because he's normally a little chubby and he came in good shape, we're like, oh wow, Skinny Kyle, good off season.
That's his playing shape. I think most guys go into the season with a pretty decent foundation. They have a lot of guys are working on their game, right? They have to work. You're right that I don't think there's any way to recreate game shape and game reps unless you start playing. So yeah, they work their way in it in that respect. But I would push back on this generation of players that they're just getting out of shape during the offseason. I think they stay pretty regimented.
All right, well, the difference is that this season restarted basically out of nowhere, and usually
completely
no one training
different
camp
this season.
is.
You're right.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, you guys can stay healthy. Hopefully, they can kind of ease into it. The first couple games, get a good feel, get some good reps in before the games actually start. I don't know when people are getting to Orlando, if it's all at the same time or if they're going to space it out. But fingers crossed. Hopefully, it'll all work out.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm actually pretty concerned about the potential injury risk because I know you listen to Bill Simmons. He's on this point about the 99 season, the lockout shortened season, for example. There's a lot of injuries that happened, and you can kind of draw a direct correlation between just the lack of preparation for the season, how quickly they had games. They had games during that season. Like this bubble format. I don't know if you looked at the schedule, but games are going to be happening quick. Like it's they're going to try to get this done. So hopefully no one gets hurt, but it could happen. Depth might actually be one of the biggest keys to winning in this bubble.
Yeah, for sure. I think NBA champion this year could be survival of the fittest.
Maybe, yeah, that very well could be
last man standing.
Something that happens. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But it's definitely something consideration. Hopefully, you don't get any Derrick Rose situations, right? That's the big concern. If there's injury risk, because there is injury risk, but that's what no NBA fan or executives want is a young star having a real career-changing injury.
I'm
right?
sure that was discussed at length when they were talking about whether to restart the season or not.
Yeah, I mean, but it's inherent, right? You can't, if you want to do it, there's always going to be an injury risk, and they have to be cognizant of the fact that when you're ramping up like this, you want to finish the season, you want to crown a champion, the downside risk is someone might get hurt. Like, imagine if Zion got hurt. He's a big guy.
Imagine if Zion got hurt. I think there's a high probability Zion gets hurt.
That's true. He does get hurt a lot.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's a big dude who's not in shape.
You know who he reminds me of, actually? Bo Jackson.
I mean, Bo Jackson is like a two-sport Hall of Famer.
Well, yeah, but also, like, he was a ridiculous huge guy and ridiculously athletic for his size. Like, big guy who can move and was powerful. Kind of reminds me that Zion is a ridiculous athlete for his size. It's almost freak.
He is, but, like, now that I think of Bo Jackson, wasn't Bo Jackson, like, six-pack Bo Jackson? Like, Bo Jackson was in immaculate shape 365 days a year.
Yeah, I mean, there's some differences, I suppose. Like, Zion, he definitely doesn't have a six-pack underneath that jersey.
No, he doesn't. He's probably 55 pounds away from a six-pack under that jersey.
Yeah, he's got to be, like, 25%, 30% body.
Oh, man. Yeah, at least 30%. Dude, he's 6'6", 285. He's the third heaviest.
He's taller than 6'6".
No, he's 6'6", but he's the third heaviest player in the NBA. Third heaviest player at 6'6". That is.
It's that lower half. He's got that booty.
I guess so. I guess.
But yeah, hopefully there's no big injuries. Hopefully, for the most part, all teams go unscathed. But we'll see. Okay, I'll do. I guess to finish this off then, because we're kind of running up on time.
Just hold on, I gotta cut you off there. I'm looking at Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson ran a 4.13 40-yard dash time.
Makes sense. Dude was a freak. He was a freak.
But he was a big dude.
Yeah,
like, those low numbers are usually for, like, receivers, like, skinny.
I reiterate, he was a freak.
Holy smokes, that is fast. I don't like now. I want to look up what the fastest combine times were.
Dude, you're going way off topic.
That's okay. I know this is your point. You go for the point. I can look up stuff.
I want you engaged.
I'm engaged. I can multitask.
Okay. Well, you threw me off. Okay, so I guess we're talking about basketball, not fucking fastest combine times.
I wonder if NBA players could run the 40-yard dash 4.13.
Ish Smith, maybe. Talking about fastest guys.
Ish Smith? How did you come up with Ish Smith?
He's one of the fastest guys in the league. That's the one thing he's known
for.
Down the court. That's like one of his only talents.
All right. You seem pretty convinced.
But, like, I don't know, peak Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook a few years ago.
That's true.
Ja Morant now. I don't know.
Maybe. Guys train, though, for the 40-yard. Like it's,
well, yeah, it's a different skill. Yeah. But
you can practice it.
It doesn't... Maybe Giannis, man. Like, those long steps. Maybe. Okay, so my next one is just... What are the players going to be like? Who's going to step up? Who's going to continue... the progress that they made, and who's gonna, like, is someone gonna explode in the bubble format? Is someone gonna shrink in the bubble format? And this is an unanswerable question until we start watching the games, but I think it's an interesting thought process that this is gonna be such a unique circumstance, as if you're in an empty gym, like, almost as it, like, it's almost the exact same as those Drew League runs. Like, you're just in a random court, no one's really watching, but you're playing against good players, except these are the best players ever. And I just wonder if there's going to be random guys who really succeed in this format and guys who really shrink. And also certain dudes, like, just off the top of my head, Raptors guy Norm Powell, for example, and other teams. I think of, like, Jason Tatum. I think of, who else? I actually wrote this down. Bam Adebayo.
Oh, yeah.
Russell Westbrook, who was on a really good run, and also Luka Doncic, who was having a great season. Different skill levels, but guys who are having good seasons. Will they be able to keep it up? I don't know.
Has Russell Westbrook silenced some of the haters who've been hating on his one-man show game with the season he just had?
I think so. He's had a really good season. The way that these story arcs work with players' careers, I mean, it's almost like you build them up, then you break them down just to build them up again. And you see that through the media and the general narrative of these guys all the time. And Russ is kind of at that point where he's being built up again a little bit. It helps if you have postseason success. So we'll see how he does in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But definitely his last few years in OKC were right after his MVP year, which was a fun run. But then after a while it got stale and it wasn't very winning. It wasn't winning basketball, right?
I mean, his team in OKC around him in those last few years did not have the depth that Houston has now. But I mean, look at this.
I mean,
hold on.
Paul George helps, but
Paul George helps. Yeah, but they were top heavy. They were really top heavy.
They weren't a good team to begin with.
No.
But look, Russ was not having his best years there. He was taking a ton. He was taking a ton of dumb shots, shooting terribly from three. And I think actually, I mean, just this micro ball experiment. I know we've touched on this, and I don't know if it's going to work, but I do think that it's been great for Russ. Like he's just able to really freewheel and use all his frenetic, athletic, explosive energy to. Yeah. He almost acts as their center, even though PJ Tucker defends the centers. He's the guy who's like. He's been better. He was better than James Harden down the stretch. James Harden's a better player, but Russ. That's the degree. That's how good Russ is. He was playing better than James down the stretch. Also, James was on a cold streak, but I don't think that'll continue.
What's unbelievable is that he's obviously not considered this year for the MVP race, but he's the second guy on Houston putting up 27, 8, and 7.
That's really good.
That's really, man, in any other year.
You should make an All-NBA team. I mean...
Oh, yeah. I mean, it may not be first, but it'll be...
Yeah, I mean, look, in any way you shake it, like, people... One of the reasons why people are, like, they trash on guys like Russ, for example, is that he reached a peak, right? He was considered so good, and he's still obviously good, but then people can... When you see where he was and where people perceive him now, that seems like a precipitous drop. And so people are, like, down on him by comparison. But if you say, who would you rather have, Russ versus like a bunch of NBA players, you're gonna be like, oh my God, Russ, of course.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's still a top 15, top 20 player.
Oh, a guy for sure. I don't like the argument where it's like, oh well, he doesn't have a chip or he doesn't have, multiple chips to the finals appearance. It's like, man, not everybody makes to the finals. Not everybody wins a chip.
No, the chip conversation is dumb on a lot of levels. It's something to consider if you have to. And I mean, if you want to separate guys who are very close in terms of skill level and career success, then it's something you consider their playoff experience.
Given their careers, who would you pick in a draft coming out of college? Paul Pierce, Russell Westbrook.
Like
knowing what you know.
You mean right now? Who would I get their whole career?
Yeah.
Probably Paul Pierce.
But see, why is that? If you look at regular season wins, Russ is going to beat him out. If you look at numbers, Russ is going to beat him out. The only thing Paul Pierce has is going to be that one championship when he had a great supporting cast.
Well, Paul Pierce, I mean, in his career, like he was
the Celtics for most of his tenure until they did that big 3 trade were perennial losers.
It's true, but I mean, they had a bad team, right?
Sure, they did, but then why are we hating on Russ for putting up better numbers on an equally bad team?
Well, I think Russ had a lot of Russ's stats, especially post KD and all that. There got to be a little bit of empty calories there. Like a lot of his rebounds, for example. I mean, it was a team concept where like Steven Adams and the big guys would simply box out so that Russ could get the rebound and he'd start his own fast break. Right, he's a one-man fast break. That was partly tactical.
Yeah, that seems like a great tactic. Rather than having the big man having to outlet to somebody on the wing, just give it to Russ and let him do the...
Right, it was partly tactical, partly like Russ... I'm sure you noticed this when he gets close to those triple-doubles, especially near the end of his OKC run. People were aware that he wanted it. Like, I mean, if he decided to pass you the ball for an assist and you missed the shot, that glare, like...
Yeah, but I mean, hey, I'd glare at anybody when they miss a shot too.
But I guess look, they're both great players, but Paul Pierce, during his prime, had a really good prime. Like, I mean,
but like Russell Westbrook had a good prime.
Points per game. Guy that down the stretch, he's going to make he has the he has the reputation of making a big shot. He's a better shooter than Russ. Russ is a very inefficient shooter. I think Russ does a lot of great things well, but I'd probably take Paul Pierce. But whatever, that's not really a conversation we need to have. Well, actually, I mean, you watch like Game of Zones. Paul Pierce was the GOAT. So there you go.
That's true. Based on
He
Game
was
of
the best
Zones,
player,
was,
greatest of all time.
Yeah.
No. Well, I don't really have much else to say. I guess like that last one just turned into a Russ debate, but I think just finish off on this. I suppose it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to get basketball back.
Yeah, I'm really happy it's coming back. Hopefully everybody stays safe and the bubble manages to work as it's intended, and hopefully we get some good basketball.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess nothing more to do than to look forward to the games, see where they go, and we'll discuss later on.
Go Raptors, go.
Yeah, okay. See you, Andrew.